On Christmas Eve, a single dad CEO discovered a little girl hidden in trash. What happened next is nothing short of life-altering. Marcus stepped out into the chilly night air, the faint jingles of laughter and holiday cheer wrapping around him like a shroud. He breathed in deeply, feeling the bitter taste of fatigue settle in. The lights of the bustling city glowed behind him, where deadlines threaded themselves into the very fabric of his being. A long day of meetings had left him disheveled and weary, barely keeping his head above water in the deluge of responsibility as a single father and CEO. His son, Ethan, was tucked safely inside, oblivious to the pressure mounting on Marcus's shoulders. He was always proud of that, his little boy's innocent happiness, but lately, pride was painfully intertwined with guilt. As he approached the trash bin, Marcus's mind whirred with thoughts of expansion, profits, and the cold reality of corporate survival. He hesitated a moment, questions swirling. Was he giving Ethan a better life by sacrificing precious time with him? Or was he simply chasing shadows of success that held no warmth? In the hazy respite of doubt, he heard its soft whimpers filtering through the night air. His heart raced, echoing anxiously in his chest. Something about the sound gnawed at him, urging him forward. He moved closer, nearly tripping over the uneven ground. The sight that met him made his heart seize. There, nestled among the refuse, was a frail little girl no older than 6, dirty and clothed in rags. Despair pooled in his gut as he knelt beside her, a wave of protectiveness igniting a paternal instinct he thought had long dimmed beneath the weight of obligations. As he wrapped her shivering form in his coat, warmth shot through him, a rush of hope amidst the chaos. And yet, paradoxically, a fierce sense of dread gripped his chest. What had he just invited into his life? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The decision to bring the girl home sparked a tempest in Marcus. Colleagues had begun to notice the distraction gnawing at him during meetings. Was his dedication to her a betrayal of ambition or a step toward redefined success? He could almost hear them whispering, judgment-esque whispers creeping into his psyche, questions shadowing his thoughts. He understood their world, crawling toward power and wealth blinded them to matters of the heart. But the weight of obligation pressed down, heavy and suffocating, making him question the stability of everything he had built. Days turned into a tug-of-war between his office demands and the pressing responsibilities of a burgeoning father. Every phone call, every meeting suffocated under scrutiny. A deluge of bureaucratic hurdles loomed, dismissing his hope with the flick of a pen. With each passing hour, anxiety scratched at the edges of his resolve, leaving him teetering on the brink of despair. He could feel the fearful tension blossom within him, as if he were suspended between two worlds, one that revered material success, and the other that hungered for genuine connection. But the moment he confronted the cold-hearted executive, broken down by weary, hollow ambition, the stakes crystallized painfully before him. Standing tall, fueled by love, he demanded respect for the vulnerable girl who embodied hope. Would others ever recognize that love held immeasurable wealth? The repercussions loomed, each stern gaze and raised brow inching him closer to the edge of panic, the painful realization chiseling away at his desire for both success and family. As he stared into the abyss of decisions yet to be made, the weight of uncertainty hung like an albatross around his neck. Could he find a way to embrace this fragile moment and redefine success? Or would ambition drown out the very essence of family he had fought to protect? The clock ticked ominously, and with it came the urgency of impending storms on the horizon. Where would it all lead? Marcus's breath was shallow as he sat shrouded in the soft glow of the living room. The little girl, whom he learned was named Lily, sat cross-legged on the floor, an untouched bowl of cereal resting near her. Her big eyes darted around, soaking in the warmth of the space he had created for Ethan and himself. Just days ago, he had never fathomed that this child would become the focal point of his life. For a moment, he simply observed her, the way she carefully explored the surroundings with cautious curiosity. It reminded him of Ethan when he first learned to walk, the boldness tempered by the uncertainty of his role in a new world. Yet, here, Lily seemed lost, as if everything was foreign and bound by invisible chains of fear. Each innocent twitch of her brow tugged at Marcus's heartstrings, and he shifted in his seat, discomfort settling within him. The morning sun streamed through the curtains, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. Marcus glanced at the clock, each tick resonating with desperation as he weighed his growing commitments against the needs of this child, tangled in uncertainty. His business awaited his expertise, meetings were lined up, all demanding his attention. Yet, that familiar urge to flee, to prioritize the day-to-day grind, combusted within him. "What do we do now?" he muttered, glancing down at the shy girl. There was so much to navigate with this unexpected turn of events, so many unknowns threatening his carefully polished routine. The line between professional diligence and personal involvement began to blur, and for the first time, he felt his career was teetering on the edge of irrelevance. Lily's tentative smile brought him back to focus. She wasn't just a burden, she represented a chance to embrace something deeper and, he feared, the painful possibility of loss if he placed her needs aside. But how does one foster a child like a project on a spreadsheet? Suddenly, the phone rang, pulling Marcus from the maze of his thoughts. It was his buddy Blake, a talent acquisition expert, a stark contrast to Marcus's cutthroat corporate environment. "Hey, just wanted to check if we're still on for that meeting later." "Yeah, about that." Marcus hesitated. The details felt irrelevant all of a sudden. The prospect of a regular conference call now held little allure compared to the fragile girl in his orbit. "Everything okay? Can we reschedule?" "Something personal has come up," Marcus stated, though the weight of every word felt monumental. "Personal? Come on, man, this is crucial. We need you at the forefront." Blake pressed that he paused, scanning the room where Lily sat playing with a tattered teddy bear that had surely seen better days. The surroundings began to feel suffocating as Marcus's internal conflict pounded like an echo through his mind. Was he willing to risk judgment and stigma for the sake of a little girl? After a full exhale, he responded decisively. "Personal comes first. I'll figure it out." For the first time, he stood firm in his resolve. Setting down his phone, he turned towards Lily, a decision simmering within him. This wasn't just about him or his growing business, it was about reimagining a future. His hands moved through the air, outlining possibilities he had swiftly brushed aside. "Let us make some changes, you and I, things can be different. Better." Little did he know that this choice would carve a path toward an often overlooked realm of personal growth, beckoning him to navigate the uncharted waters of empathy, sacrifice, and resilience. As the day continued, Marcus found himself pondering the inevitable clash between his responsibilities and the growing bond he had with Lily. In that delicate balance lay the roots for a deeper transformation, one leading him toward a realization that success was not merely defined by earnings and accolades. What awaited him was a confrontation with himself, what sacrifices he was genuinely willing to make. But a familiar name knocked loud, disrupting the tranquility of his thoughts. His ex-wife, Charlotte, suddenly loomed on the horizon like an oncoming tempest, and Marcus knew he stood at the precipice of a confrontation he wasn't prepared for. Would he possess the courage to shield both Lily and Ethan from the chaos she embodied? The echoes of his past began to stir in the air, reminding him that some nightmares could find their way back just when you thought you were ready to dream again. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the living room as Marcus turned back to face Lily. A soft hum filled the air, and he watched her slowly begin to push the cereal around in the bowl, lost in thought. There was potential in that simple act, a child navigating the complexities of a new environment, just as he had to find his footing again. Marcus felt the urgency of the moment. It wasn't time for half measures. Determined to make this situation work, he knelt beside her, allowing himself to step into her world. "Hey, Lily," he said cautiously. "How about we clean this up together? I can help." Her hesitant gaze shifted to him, slowly registering his words. The walls of anxiety that encased her demeanor began to crack with curiosity as she looked between him and the cereal. "That way, we can make some time for a fun morning activity," he added, trying to bridge the gap that separated them. A flicker of interest broke through her uncertainty. She picked up a small spoon, and he mirrored her movements. Together, they slowly transferred the cereal into the bowl. As they worked, he felt a mission grow within him to turn this chaotic intersection of their lives into something meaningful. In that moment, a realization struck him. This was not merely about assessing his career against personal obligations, it was about crafting a supportive environment, an emotional framework in which Lily could thrive. "Do you like art?" he asked, hoping to steer the conversation toward a more inviting topic. Her brow knitted slightly, and silence loomed before she whispered, "I used to." A sense of longing filled her response. He understood her words on multiple levels. As someone who had poured heart and soul into building his own career, Marcus knew what it meant to set aside passions in the pursuit of ambition. "Why don't we make some art together?" he proposed. "We could create something to brighten up the room." For the first time, her lips shaped a small smile, encouraged by his suggestion. "Okay," she replied, a tentative enthusiasm coloring her voice. They gathered supplies, markers, paper, and even the makeshift crafts lying around the living room. Each stroke of color blossomed into a canvas, as he focused on nurturing her spirit through creativity. It dawned on him how personal growth could blossom from this shared experience, far beyond traditional roles of parenthood and responsibility. As the minutes turned into an hour, he could feel the subtle shifting of their relationship. Lily focused intently on their artwork, occasionally glancing at him as if questioning whether this was real. He made an effort to elicit laughter from her, a small jest here and a playful poke there. "Did you know that purple is the color of royalty?" he quipped, gesturing dramatically toward their work. "Really?" She giggled, revealing a glimpse of a child who wasn't burdened by shadows. It ignited something within him, a mode of connection that he hadn't anticipated, but another thought struck him: Charlotte. She would likely appear any moment now, determined to disrupt the peaceful existence they had begun to form. The sense of dread crept into his focus, the clock ticking ever closer to that encounter. He couldn't help but feel the wind of uncertainty swipe at the edges of his burgeoning optimism. Would the warmth they created together hold against the cold, daunting reality of her arrival? He could sense a turning point was close at hand. Who would he be when it mattered most? The unease inside him settled like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. In that moment, he realized this journey was no longer just about him, it was about protecting the sanctuary they were building. The doorbell rang, shattering the moment, and he froze, heart racing. Would he face the tempest to safeguard this fragile bond? Or would he yield, letting the past swallow them both whole? The doorbell chimed again, piercing through the tension that enveloped the room. Marcus glanced at Lily, her eyes widening as the cheerful sound shattered the calm sanctuary they had begun to establish. The moment hung thick between them, and he could see the unease creeping back into her expression, a stark reminder of the unpredictable storm brewing just outside their bubble. He stood slowly, each step towards the door resonating with the gravity of his decision. Would he maintain the fragile connection they had just begun to forge, or would he let the remnants of his past intrude upon their developing bond? It felt like a fork in the road, the two paths diverging beneath his feet, one leading back to chaos, the other toward hope and healing. With a deep breath, he grasped the doorknob and turned it. The door creaked open, and there stood Charlotte, her arms crossed defensively. The coolness in her expression mirrored the chill outside. "Marcus," she said, her voice steady but edged with a tightness he had come to recognize over the years. "We need to talk." A surge of frustration bubbled up, but he forced it back down, reminding himself of Lily's presence behind him. "Now is not a great time," he replied, trying to keep his tone neutral. Charlotte stepped forward, attempting to step into the room. "I don't care. We need to sort this out, about custody, and what's best for Lily." Each word carried the weight of past grievances, the bitterness of unresolved conflict. Marcus closed the door slightly, anchoring his resolve. Lily is trying to adjust. Can't we do this later? Do you realize how important it is to make decisions about her future right now? Charlotte shot back, impatience flaring in her eyes. In that split second, the tension became palpable, as if the very air crackled with unspoken thoughts. Marcus felt a shift within himself. This was no longer just about avoiding confrontation, it was about asserting the haven he had begun to build for Lily. He mulled over his next words carefully, realizing how crucial it was to stand firm, to advocate for both his needs and those of his daughter. Charlotte, her needs come first. The words slipped out, and he felt the surge of confidence that accompanied them. This was his moment to protect Lily, to redefine their family dynamics on his terms. The silence that followed felt heavy, laden with the weight of their shared history, but also with the ripening potential of a new future. In the background, he could see Lily peeking around his leg, her small form a reminder of their shared artistic endeavor. "Excuse me?" Charlotte scoffed, eyebrows raised. "You haven't even proven you can support her, let alone understand what she needs right now." Anger and hurt coursed through Marcus as he processed her accusation. Despite the swirl of conflicting emotions, something crystallized within him, a clearer understanding of his own value as a father. There were hidden strengths he hadn't explored yet, skills honed through years of climbing the corporate ladder, now vital in defending his daughter. Drawing on that newfound clarity, he realized it was time to confront not only Charlotte but also the limitations he had accepted in silence. "I'm learning, Charlotte. I'm trying. But dismissing my efforts isn't going to help Lily thrive. I will fight for her, and I will put in the work." Charlotte opened her mouth to retort, but instead, a fleeting look of surprise crossed her face. The air thickened with unspoken possibilities, the tension teetering between rupture and resolution. For Marcus, this was only the beginning. Each decision he made would shape his relationship with both Charlotte and Lily, and as daunting as it felt, it was also a chance to redefine himself in the eyes of his daughter. Everything hung precariously in the balance, teetering toward the unknown. Would he be able to navigate these turbulent waters with self-assurance, or would the past consume them both? As those thoughts resonated within him, he felt a surge of determination. No matter the challenges ahead, he would not back down. The choice to rise and protect what mattered could redefine his destiny. And in that pivotal moment, Marcus knew the time had come to redefine his identity, not just as a businessman or father, but as a man capable of growth and resilience. What lay ahead was unwritten, but the allure of potential success in facing both Charlotte and his own limitations drew him in. The storm was far from over, the real battle had just begun. Marcus could feel the heaviness of Charlotte's gaze like a weight pressing down on his chest, a stark reminder that the confrontation wouldn't end with just words. There was more at stake now than merely asserting himself. He was setting a precedent for what his relationship with Lily and co-parenting with Charlotte could be going forward. He stood his ground, the pulse of determination pushing him to explore this newfound space of strength. "You may not think I'm capable," he said, his voice steady but low, "but I'm here, and I'm willing to fight for this. Not just for my rights but for Lily's well-being." Charlotte's expression morphed from defensive to contemplative, and for a moment, it felt as if a veil had lifted. He could see the flicker of recognition in her eyes, the acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, there was more to him than the past she clung to. "I don't want to repeat the mistakes we've made, Marcus," she replied, her tone softening slightly despite herself. "But this isn't just about you wanting to play the good dad now." It stung. The edges of her words were sharp enough to draw blood, but Marcus fought to keep the conversation productive rather than allowing it to spiral into accusations. Her fears mirrored his own insecurities, but he couldn't let them paralyze him. Recognizing this, he resigned himself to the fact that they needed to collaborate somehow, even if their history seemed like a precarious bridge spanning tumultuous waters. "I understand that." He paused, attempting to approach the conversation from a new angle that would benefit Lily. "Let's talk about a plan. We can work through the custody arrangements together, with our daughter's best interests at heart." A moment of silence followed, and Marcus sensed the tension beginning to ebb, strained but not yet broken. Although Charlotte clearly hadn't expected a proposal of collaboration, he also didn't miss the way her posture shifted. Her arms were now uncrossed, her defensiveness relaxed, as if they faced the same problem instead of each other. "All right," she said reluctantly, "but we need a timeline. Something concrete." Marcus steeled himself, realizing this was the moment where he had to navigate both their demands and set boundaries. "I can research some resources and come up with ideas on how we can co-parent effectively. We can meet regularly to reevaluate as Lily's needs evolve." It felt remarkably empowering to think of solutions instead of getting lost in the quagmire of bitter exchanges. There was hope in steering the conversation toward practical outcomes, something he had only just glimpsed in his role as a father, and now it burned brighter. "Fine, but don't think this means I trust you completely," she added, though there was tentative acknowledgement in her tone. "You still have a lot to prove." "I will," he affirmed, feeling the rising tide of resolve within him. The critical difference lay in the action he was willing to take, not just for Charlotte's approval but for Lily's future, where she would have stable memories rather than just fragmented moments of conflict. With their conversation reaching a somewhat amicable place, the air seemed charged with the potential for newfound collaboration. The thoughts of Lily, they bubbled to the forefront of his mind now. He could envision their shared moments of creativity, the laughter lingering in the air as they created something unique together. This was a bond worth nurturing, an avenue through which he could flourish as both an artist and a father, yet, there remained hits of doubt. What if, despite this fragile progress, Charlotte turned on him again? Could they genuinely work together? The fears of failure loomed as he mentally skimmed through their turbulent past. Just then, the subtle sound of Lily's footsteps crept closer, her small shadow falling at the door's edge. Marcus was reminded of their previous connection, the art they had created together. Would their collective efforts truly outshine the shadows trailing them? Determination coursed through him. He knew the stakes were high in that. Every word, every plan would serve as a building block to a new foundation for Lily. As he caught Charlotte's gaze, the tension simmered beneath the surface. "Let us meet next week," he suggested, his resolve firm. "If we are going to do this, then we need to be accountable." "Agreed," she replied, a tone of begrudging respect lacing her words. But just as Marcus felt a flicker of victory, a wave of doubt crashed over him. Would their tentative agreement hold under the weight of their history, or would it dissolve beneath the pressures they would face? In that moment of introspection, he realized navigating this journey wouldn't be easy. But every step forward was vital, not only for him but for Lily, who deserved stability. As those thoughts became more concrete, he heard Lily call out, her innocent voice breaking through the haze of adult conflict. He turned, and his heart swelled at the sight of her, unaware of the storm that had just passed in the other room. Today might have marked a shift, but it was perhaps merely the beginning. That he met Lily's curious gaze, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing now he would fight not just for recognition as a father but for the essence of their family bond. An uncharted path stretched before them, and as the uncertainty loomed, he sensed a different kind of challenge emerging on the horizon. His business was under scrutiny, and soon he would have to face obstacles that would test his leadership and resilience in ways he had never anticipated. Marcus took a deep breath, the weight of the past blending uneasily with the possibilities of the future. He watched Lily as she moved through the living room, a chaos of energy and innocence, completely unaware of the complexities woven into their lives. The laughter and joy she exuded reminded him of the enthusiasm he had lost somewhere along the way. But it was there, waiting to be rediscovered. "Dad, can we paint together?" Lily's voice was bright, bursting through the remnants of tension. The request tugged at his heartstrings, reigniting the creative spark within him that had been dulled during the estrangement with Charlotte. "Sure, sweetheart," Marcus replied, his tone shifting from guarded to warm. "Let us set up the table." As they gathered the paints and paper, Marcus felt a renewed sense of purpose flood his being. In this quiet moment of connection, he had the chance to build something beautiful, not just the colorful artwork that would spill across the canvas, but a deeper relationship with Lily that needed nurturing. The two settled into the rhythm of creativity, but beneath the strokes of vibrant colors, Marcus's thoughts turned inward, contemplating the dynamic with Charlotte. The upcoming meeting loomed in his mind like a storm on the horizon. He questioned whether his efforts would hold up when faced with her skepticism. Could he rise to the occasion by crafting a stable co-parenting plan, or would his insecurities unravel at the most critical moment? As Lily's laughter filled the room, he reminded himself of their pact. He had made a commitment today not just to cooperative parenting, but to be the father who showed up consistently, who fought against their history to become a better version of himself. "Look at this one, Daddy!" Lily exclaimed, presenting a smudge of blue and yellow that resembled, perhaps, a sun. "Isn't it beautiful? It's perfect," he said, genuinely admiring her innocent interpretation of beauty. Each brushstroke she made was a lesson for him. They embodied freedom and untainted optimism. Marcus knew he had to reflect that same energy in his own life, whether through art or in the complex task of co-parenting. His heart swelled with resolve. This task was no longer just a chore but a chance to reshape their narrative into one built on trust and understanding. Yet, that weighty fear simmered in the back of his mind. What would happen when they faced the reality of shared responsibilities? An unsettling thought struck him. What if Charlotte's doubts came with more than just skepticism? What if she projected her past anger onto their new arrangement? Could he maintain his newfound strength in the face of her hostility? "Lily, remember that time we made the big mural in the park?" he asked, guiding her focus back to joyful memories. The question served dual purposes. It engaged their creativity while also reminding him of the ability to overcome obstacles, both personal and collaborative. Her eyes widened with excitement, and they ventured into a discussion about their colorful creations. He marveled at how simple memories became lifelines, tethering him to a path of hope, despite the looming challenges ahead. It was in these moments with her that he realized, children had a way of illuminating the way forward, helping adults rediscover what truly mattered. After what felt like hours, an array of painted sheets decorated the table, each one a reflection of their personal journeys. As the sun dipped low, creating shadows that danced across their masterpiece, Marcus laid down the last stroke of paint on a sunset. Sitting back, he felt the tension seep out of his body, replaced by renewed vision. He wasn't just a father, he was an artist, a leader, and a guide. Yet as much as he cherished the moment, a jolt of anxiety flickered in his core. The real test awaited as he prepared for the meeting with Charlotte. Would they be able to construct a healthy framework for Lily's sake, or was he merely building a facade, one ready to crumble under scrutiny? As the questions churned in his mind, he caught sight of their artwork, a collage of colors and emotions old and new. In that realization, an impulse sparked within him. What if he drew from their creativity when he approached Charlotte? Marcus felt a shift in perception. The next chapter wouldn't just be dictated by fears or unresolved emotions. It required grit, flexibility, and the ability to communicate effectively. He now had tools he didn't possess before. As the evening deepened, he sensed that the winds of change were beginning to shift, not for him alone, but for his family unit. He would take a bold step that night, not just as Lily's father but as a determined man shedding the burdens of his past with Charlotte. And as he watched Lily playfully arranging their artwork, he steeled himself for the next challenge. The upcoming meeting would require all he had learned: the emotional shifts, the collaborative spirit, and that unwavering resolve to create something beautiful from fractured beginnings. Tomorrow was not just another chance, it was an opportunity to define what family could mean in an evolving narrative. But the question nagged at him: would Charlotte be willing to grasp this chance with him, or would history dictate their future? The sunlight of the morning filtered through the window, touching the room with a soft warmth that felt promising. Marcus found himself awake before dawn, his mind buzzing with anticipation and uncertainty. The meeting today wasn't just a formal arrangement, it was a critical juncture where past and future collided, and he had no choice but to confront Charlotte. As the coffee brewed, Marcus shifted through the motions of the kitchen, a mechanical dance that belied the tempest raging in his gut. He craved control, yet felt adrift, unable to shake the memories of their tumultuous history. The ghost of their argument surfaced, uninvited, casting shadows on the optimism he had forged the night before. Getting ready for the day, he stared at his reflection in the mirror. This moment required more than the usual deliberation. he needed transformation. The image looking back at him was no longer the defeated man who allowed fear to dictate his actions. Today, he would step forward as a man who recognized the stakes not simply for himself, but for Lily. As he arrived at the coffee shop where they agreed to meet, he looked around for signs of Charlotte. Would she appear as she always did, guarded and defensive? Or would today offer a glimpse of a willing collaborator, one open to negotiations that could create a healthier environment for Lily? The barista calling out orders seemed distant, almost surreal. He spotted her seated at a corner table, arms crossed, her expression a mix of wariness and hesitation. As he approached, her gaze locked onto his, bringing forth a flood of emotions that he quickly dampened. This was not a moment for sentiment. He needed to present his best self, unfettered by past grievances. "Charlotte," he began, his voice steady, though his heart raced, "thank you for meeting me." "Let us get this over with," she replied bluntly, her tone brimming with skepticism. Marcus felt his resolve fracture momentarily. Giving in to anger would be easy, but he squeezed his eyes shut for just a second, reminding himself of the promise he made to Lily. He aimed to reframe the conversation. "I know things have been tough," he said, choosing his words carefully, "but we have a chance here, together, to make Lily's environment more nurturing." Her eyebrows furrowed, but didn't he yet reject his idea? "And how do you propose we do that?" "Last time we tried arranging a schedule, it turned into a circus," she stated, her voice sharpening with disbelief. He had anticipated resistance. "Let us start simple. Maybe we each draft a parenting plan on paper." "What do you envision for her?" To his surprise, a flicker of interest crossed her face, although it was quickly masked by mistrust. "This isn't my first rodeo, Marcus. You say you want to collaborate, but I still feel like I can't trust you to commit." That piercing revelation struck a chord within him. It was uncomfortable, and yet it framed the foundation of their interaction. This was not merely about logistics, it involved vulnerability, the kind he had spent years avoiding. A realization dawned: could he commit to transparency, even if it laid him open to potential rejection? "I understand your hesitation," he said, leaning in slightly, an unconscious attempt to bridge the emotional gap. "But I've been reflecting on what our past looks like, and it's clear that we can't afford to let that dictate our future. I want to create a space where Lily feels safe and loved. That matters more than any old resentment." "Words are cheap, Marcus," she countered, crossing her arms tighter, and yet, he saw a crack in her facade. Something within her was shifting, if only just. His instincts kicked in. He needed to take the next step. "If you give me a chance, I will prove it," he stated. "I want to share the responsibility, and I'm willing to be flexible. We craft this together for Lily's sake." He watched as she weighed his words, uncertainty etched on her face. Each passing moment felt precarious, a balancing act on the edge of transformation. "Let us see this parenting plan then," she replied, a tentative spark of willingness igniting the air. As they began discussing ideas, a low hum of hope thrummed beneath their surface dialogue, resonating with the possibility of forging a new path. The negotiations turned into a buoyant expression of compromise, sway and flow, where both had stake and voice, each breath infused with the potential to renew, but unease lingered. Marcus knew that old habits could rear their heads unexpectedly. Could he truly trust himself to remain calm when the past threatened to intrude? Would Charlotte remain open as they approached the deeper matters of their relationship? The hour passed quickly, the initial tension gradually replaced by a collaborative spirit that surprised both of them. Yet as they gathered their things and prepared to leave, an unresolved tension hung in the air, amplifying the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Could one meeting pave the way for lasting change? Questions swirled in Marcus's mind. How would they engage with the bitter remnants of their history? And most pressing of all, could trust be rebuilt? As Charlotte stepped out, he stood at the threshold, feeling the ghosts of their past linger unexpectedly. Today had been a start, but a long road remained ahead. Would they grasp this chance together, or would they once again drift apart? Marcus sat back in the dimly lit corner of his living room, the weight of the day still pressing on his shoulders. The remnants of his conversation with Charlotte clung to him like a wet blanket, heavy and suffocating. The parenting plan had felt like a fragile bridge built across a tumultuous ravine. He couldn't help but wonder if it would hold. The shadows stretched long as day turned to night, his mind darting between the flickers of hope and the echoing fear of past failures. Each heartbeat reverberated with the question, was he capable of maintaining this fragile equilibrium? He yearned for redemption, yet doubt threatened to overshadow every moment of brief optimism. Opening the laptop that rested beside him, Marcus scrolled through notes he had made post-meeting. The parenting plan took shape on the screen, transforming into a tangible commitment instead of mere words. Lists of potential schedules, activities, and even a co-parenting checklist filled the page, each item a step toward a better version of their chaotic past. Yet, the true test loomed larger than just logistics. He needed to confront the deeper issues that roared beneath the surface, the unresolved questions of trust between him and Charlotte. They lived in an emotional battleground, one that they were hoping to navigate for Lily's sake. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, but the fear of sending the draft and potentially reigniting the fire of old disputes paralyzed him. What if she dismissed his efforts as insincere? The thought made him nauseous, a bitter taste lingering in his mouth. He remembered the moments when words had failed them both, the snide remarks, and the resentment that had spiraled out of control. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes, visualizing Lily's smile, her laughter echoing in his dreams. He thought back to the last school play, where she had beamed from the dim light of the stage, full of potential under those blinking fairy lights. If there were no room for growth in his relationship with Charlotte, how could there be hope for their daughter? He opened his eyes, that determination rekindling a flicker of confidence. The thought crossed his mind unexpectedly, vulnerability could be an instrument of strength. If he embraced openness and took the first step towards transparency, perhaps he could model an example for Lily about facing fears. He also realized that sharing this parenting plan wasn't merely about practicality, it carried the essence of his commitment to becoming the father and co-parent he needed to be. With newfound clarity, he began typing again, infusing the digital pages with words that held his heart. He articulated his thoughts, the intentions behind the plan, ensuring that Charlotte understood he wasn't just looking to impose changes but instead seeking partnership. Hours passed as he crafted his message, each sentence forming a stronger conviction within him to embrace this path, precarious as it was. Before sending, he glanced over the uncharacteristically vulnerable draft once more and hit send with a pulse of adrenaline flooding his system, a tangible commitment to his daughter's future. In the aftermath of the click, a sense of exhilaration rippled through him. He could almost hear his own heartbeat echo his resolve. He wasn't just a participant in his life anymore, he was taking back the reins to steer his journey into new territory. As he warmed a microwave dinner, the phone buzzed. His heart raced as he picked it up, knowing it could be a response from Charlotte. Would she greet his effort with scorn, or could they finally begin building something solid together? There it was, an immediate reply. As he read her response, sense and urgency flooded through him. Whatever lay ahead, Marcus understood one essential truth: the time had come to face the ghosts of their shared past, and he was ready to confront them head-on, not only for himself but for Lily's sake. What would Charlotte's reply mean for the fragile thread of hope they had begun to weave? The uncertainty of her words loomed larger than ever, ushering in a pivotal moment neither of them could afford to take lightly. Marcus held his breath as he read Charlotte's response, which felt like both an invitation and a challenge. Her words were measured and cautious, tinged with an openness he hadn't anticipated. "Let us meet to discuss this further." The simplicity of her request embedded a complex mix of dread and hope within him. He didn't reply immediately, he needed to process, to strategize. The 10-minute window it took for him to gather his thoughts felt like a lifetime. Their meetings typically devolved into arguments fueled by years of resentment. This time, however, he felt armed with purpose. This was about their daughter, and for the first time, both of them might be capable of putting her needs first. Looking around his living room, a space imprinted with past conflicts, he made a decision. He would approach their meeting with a new perspective, recalibrating his emotional gears toward collaboration instead of confrontation. He needed to access his inner strength without drowning in doubt. This wasn't just for Lily, it was his own reclamation of the father he wanted to be. He pulled out an old spiral notebook where he had recorded his thoughts about parenting. Flipping through the pages, he found inspirational notes on patience, listening, and understanding qualities that had often slipped through his fingers amid their disagreements. He realized he needed to navigate the emotional terrain with empathy and assertiveness, which had evaded him in the past. The upcoming meeting felt like stepping onto a tightrope. He wanted to communicate his commitment but feared his words could be easily misinterpreted. What could he say to ease Charlotte's lingering doubts about his sincerity? Immediately, he began jotting down ideas. Focus on mutual goals, he thought. Avoid blame. Acknowledge the past but don't dwell. He moved through the list, reminding himself that redemption wasn't just possible, it was necessary for all three of them. With that list, he felt empowered, gaining momentum. The act of preparing carved a path through his doubt. Each bullet point was a building block, creating a scaffold upon which he could present his vision of co-parenting. But as the night wore on, he could feel remnants of his insecurities creeping back in. Would Charlotte hear him out? Would she even respect his newfound commitment to change? It felt surreal that a simple meeting could carry such importance. It wasn't just about logistics anymore, it became a proving ground for him to demonstrate his growth. Sleep eluded him as visions of uncertainty curled around his consciousness. He could feel the pressure of expectation rising like a tide against the shore, waiting to crash down at the first sign of failure. Yet, somewhere deep inside echoed an unshakable confidence. Failure was no longer an option. When morning dawned, Marcus dressed with precision, each layer of fabric feeling like a protective barrier against his self-doubt. He replayed affirmations in his mind, preparing himself for the worst while hoping for the best. As he drove towards the cafe where they had agreed to meet, the city unfolded around him, a hazy blend of optimism and fear. He could see the road ahead brought to life through the vision of what their family could become. Arriving early, he settled into a corner table, allowing himself a moment to breathe. He had spent so much time lost in the pathos of their relationship. Now as the light streamed in through the cafe window, it illuminated the potential for something new. But would Charlotte arrive with walls still firmly up? Would embracing this opportunity lead to mutual healing, or would it lay bare old wounds that were still festering? Uneasiness knotted his stomach again as the door swung open. Soon he would know if this moment would fracture their fragile plans or serve as a catalyst for a breakthrough they desperately needed. The clarity of that truth hung in the air, electrifying and daunting, as he prepared to confront the unpredictability of their tomorrow. What would Charlotte bring to the table in this critical moment? The stakes felt impossibly high as he caught sight of her approaching figure. The cafe bustled with morning energy, but for Marcus, time felt suspended as Charlotte approached. She wore a neutral expression, her body language radiating guardedness. Here was the moment where hope collided sharply with uncertainty, the potential for a renewed partnership teetering between them. Marcus stood, heart racing, and gestured for her to sit. "Hi, Charlotte," he began, working to keep his tone steady and inviting. "Hi," she replied curtly, sliding into the seat across from him. Her arms crossed instinctively, an old habit resurrected. Despite the emotional distance, Marcus held on to the flicker of willingness in her eyes. This was his chance to blend vulnerability with strength. "I appreciate you agreeing to meet," he continued, choosing his words carefully. "I've been reflecting on our conversation about the parenting plan, and I want to approach it with an open mind." Charlotte's brow furrowed, but he pressed on. "I know I haven't always been the best partner or co-parent. This is a chance for us to put our differences aside and really focus on what's best for Lily." He watched her process the words, the tension in her shoulders loosening ever so slightly. "I'm tired of how things have been," she stated, her voice carrying the weight of shared history. "We've floundered before, Marcus. I don't want to go through that again." "Neither do I," he affirmed, leaning slightly closer. "This isn't just for us, it's for her. I want to hear your perspective, find common ground, and truly co-parent, not just exist in the same space." He could see her deliberation, the internal battle playing out behind her eyes. "You're saying all the right things," she said slowly, the skepticism not fully abandoned. But are you willing to put in the work? That question hung heavily in the air. He took a breath, grounding himself in determination. Absolutely. I've learned a lot through this experience, and I'm committed to making consistent efforts. Each day, I can demonstrate that my priorities have changed. I want to be a father whom Lily can rely on and thrive with. Charlotte's walls were still up, but there was a moment, just a flicker, where hope glimmered in her expression. What do you propose? She asked, her tone cautiously curious. Marcus felt the tide shift as he outlined concrete actions, developing a shared calendar for Lily's activities, designating times for their own discussions, and making joint decisions about her education. He articulated everything he had written in his notebook about accountability, respect, and transparency. As he spoke, he noticed her defenses begin to lower. Each suggestion poured forth like a bomb against their previous conflicts, bringing forth a renewed sense of purpose to the table. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about creating a structure where we can communicate freely and keep Lily's needs at the forefront, he concluded, his heart racing with the potential for something transformative. Charlotte regarded him intently, her gaze piercing yet contemplative. You sound resolute, she finally said, a hint of vulnerability emerging. But I need to see it to believe it. Then let me show you, Marcus stated firmly, the confidence surging within him. Let us set milestones. We can have a weekly check-in to discuss our progress, recalibrate if needed. I want us to be partners in this, not just co-parents. That could work, she replied cautiously, her expression thoughtful. But I have my own fears. If this falls apart again, I just can't go through that. Understood, he acknowledged, nodding emphatically. But I'm prepared to be patient, Charlotte. I want this to be a safe space for both you and Lily. We can communicate, lay everything out for each other in a constructive way. There won't be any blame, just a focus on the future. Silence swept between them, charged with a heightened sense of readiness. Marcus sensed a shift within Charlotte as she finally uncrossed her arms. All right, she said, her voice steadying. This feels different. I'm willing to engage with this plan, but we both need to bring our best. In that moment, relief washed over him, the stormy clouds hanging over their heads began to part. Agreed, he said, acknowledging her role in this new dynamic. It's not going to be easy, but we'll work through whatever arises together. As they continued to discuss the logistics, a sense of unity blossomed, a shared vision where both parents could thrive alongside their daughter. Marcus realized then that the pact they were forging was not just about Lily, it was a testament to his growth and willingness to transform his professional ambitions into personal fulfillment. Each word they exchanged infused life into their aspirations, a clear glimpse into the family ecosystem they could build together. And even though the road would still have hurdles, they were buoyed by mutual trust and accountability, an uncharted territory that promised growth. Walking away from that cafe, Marcus felt a weight lift. The uncertainty was still present, but it was entwined with hope for the future. He began reconstructing the very fabric of what family could mean, grounded in cooperation and intentionality. As he drove home, the mingling sense of new beginnings filled the air, fuel for a new path. The realization dawned upon him, his prior identity as a CEO had evolved, now intertwining with a father's heart. This balance brought with it clarity, recognition, and ultimately, a purposeful existence far beyond mere ambitions. Every moment with Lily became a defining brushstroke in the magnificent canvas of their shared future, one he would not only embrace but champion. With newfound confidence, Marcus prepared not just for the challenges ahead in their custody dynamics, but also an exciting journey as a father determined to rewrite their story. There had never been a more pivotal moment, and Marcus stood ready to seize it. As the sun set behind him, he couldn't help but smile. The foundations of a new legacy, built on resilience and love, spread out ahead, waiting to be cultivated by a man reborn through vulnerability and growth. An exciting chapter awaited him, and it would not only be for himself but for everything he had vowed to protect. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.